On this Wednesday night, feisty face-to-face, dissecting the punchy presidential debate.
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people.
She goes down as the worst vice president.
And the lies.
They're eating the cats.
Plus the impact of pop superstar Taylor Swift's endorsement of Kamala Harris. Millions in the path of a dangerous storm where Hurricane Francine is headed. Tributes to a trailblazer.
And she was the right leader.
How Manitobans are honoring Grand Chief Kathy Merrick. And the art of solid detective work. How this priceless portrait stolen in Ottawa was tracked down in Italy.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Donald Trump claims it was his best debate ever. Kamala Harris's supporters believe she clearly dominated. The question is whether last night's 90-minute TV debate made any difference to undecided American voters. This morning they met for a second time to mark the 23rd anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. There is no place for politics here. It's a somber ceremony to honor the almost 3,000 people killed in the worst terrorist attack on American soil. But all eyes were on the body language of the two people vying to be the next president of the United States. Jackson Proskow has our top story on the debate and its impact on their political futures.
The tone was set the moment Kamala Harris confidently strode up to Donald Trump.
Kamala Harris, let's have a good debate.
It didn't take long for things to unravel.
She doesn't have a plan.
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people.
In her debate debut, Harris turned the tables on Trump.
You're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me.
Forcing him to defend his record, even though she's the one running as a virtual incumbent.
What we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess.
Harris, the former prosecutor, tried and succeeded in getting under Trump's skin.
People start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom,
which sent Trump veering off course into an unhinged and untrue rant about immigrants in American towns.
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
As Trump lied and exaggerated.
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But Harris was pressed to define where she stands on the issues, while Trump repeatedly refused to say whether he'd veto a national abortion ban after taking credit for overturning abortion rights.
There's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted.
More often than not, expressions said more than words. After their matchup, both candidates took a victory lap.
This was my best debate. I thought it was very good. I thought she was very weak on foreign policy.
Tonight, I think, highlighted for the American people what's at stake.
In a sign of how their campaigns may actually feel about their performances, Harris immediately called for a second debate, while Trump appeared to reject the idea, at least for now.
You know, when you win, you don't really necessarily have to do it a second time. So we'll see.
Jackson's with me now. Jackson, the format for this debate was very similar to the Biden-Trump debate, except the moderators this time did some real-time fact-checking, right?
They did, Donna, and it was primarily aimed at Donald Trump every time he would spew a significant falsehood. Trump's team is claiming that's unfair, that it amounts to a 3-on-1 debate. But let's give you a sample of the kind of fact-checking that did take place last night.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
There have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Despite their unhappiness with that fact-checking, Trump actually managed to get more speaking time, Donna, because more often than not, he actually interjected when Kamala Harris was finished speaking.
Yeah, and Jackson, going into this debate, there was that sense that Harris really had to prove herself, get Americans to know her better. Is there any evidence yet she made an impact on undecided voters?
You know, in some sense, it may be too soon to know specifically about the issue of people not knowing where she stands on policy issues. There was not a lot of policy discussion last night, but I think a lot of Americans were also looking for something else, and that is a sense of how she would hold up under pressure. And in that sense, yes, she gave a very good demonstration of what she would be like in a stressful situation for those full 90 minutes. Donna, the TV audience last night, by the way, nearing 60 million households. That's far more than tuned in for the Biden-Trump debate back in June.
All right, Jackson in Washington, thanks. As soon as the debate was over, Taylor Swift had something to say. A little later, we'll look at celebrity endorsements and the impact they can have. To Canadian politics now, there's no immediate election on the horizon here, but it certainly feels like the ground is being prepared. Both the Liberals and the NDP are holding retreats with their MPs before Parliament returns next week, and the federal Conservative leader is stirring the pot, hoping to provoke a vote while his party is riding high in the polls. Our chief political correspondent, David Akin, is at the Liberal retreat in Nanaimo, BC. David, where do things stand as the summer ends?
Well, Donna, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has been told directly by caucus that he is now perceived as more of a political liability than an asset.
In a democracy, people will have all sorts of different perspectives, and that's important that we have that, including within the Liberal Party.
And yet, his caucus, by and large, still believe Trudeau is their best bet to revive their political fortunes.
My colleagues are willing to run through the wall for the Prime Minister, and I think that's positive. It's a sign of how they judge his leadership.
The plan now is to respond more forcefully to attacks by Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives while boasting about their own record.
I can't wait to continue getting into it this fall with Pierre Poilievre, whose perspective is cuts are the only way forward, because I know that confident countries invest in their future.
Poilievre is also itching to get at it. He challenged NDP leader Jagmeet Singh to join his party in voting non-confidence in the Trudeau minority.
I'm asking him to answer the question he has dodged 31 times. Will you vote non-confidence to trigger a carbon tax election at the earliest possible time? Yes or no?
At the NDP caucus retreat in Montreal, Singh fired right back.
I say directly to Pierre Poilievre, I'm not going to listen to you, someone who wants to destroy our healthcare system, who wants to hurt seniors by cutting their pensions, someone who wants to attack workers, someone who wants to strip away dental care from seniors.
Now, that may not be something that Pierre Poilievre wants to hear, but it looks like it is something that many Canadians want to hear. New polling data provided exclusively to Global News by Ipsos says that a majority of Canadians do not want an election right now. In fact, they want the opposition parties to work with the governing Liberals on a case-by-case basis. Donna.
Interesting. David Akin in Nanaimo. Thanks. In Mexico, a controversial judicial reform has narrowly passed in the Senate, which means thousands of judges and magistrates will now be elected by popular vote. Lawmakers gave the green light during a marathon 12-hour session that had to be suspended and then moved after protesters stormed the Senate chamber. They called the reforms a power grab. Mexico's outgoing president proposed the reform, claiming it will get rid of corruption in the justice system and make it responsive to public will. But critics fear it will undermine the rule of law, damage the economy, and strengthen the power of Mexico's governing party. There was an historic moment at the UN. Palestinians took a seat at the UN General Assembly for the first time, despite not being a full member of the organization. The Palestine Authority's envoy took his seat labeled State of Palestine at yesterday's session. Israel has denounced the move, calling it a reward for terrorism. In May, the Assembly voted overwhelmingly in favor of reconsidering Palestine's full membership. It can sit among member states, but is unable to cast a vote or join the Security Council. And in Gaza, an Israeli airstrike killed at least 34 people in a UN school where displaced Palestinian families were sheltering. At least 6 staff members of UNRWA, the UN Relief and Works Agency, are also among the dead. The UN says this is the 5th strike on the same location in the past 11 months. Israel claims it was targeting what it believes was a Hamas control center. The topic of war came up several times in last night's U.S. presidential debate. Donald Trump says he wants Russia's war with Ukraine over, but he didn't directly answer whether he wants Ukraine to win. Today, the U.S. Secretary of State and his British counterpart were both in Kyiv. The Ukrainian president has been pressing for permission to use long-range missiles to strike deep inside Russia. Redmond Shannon reports on why that matters so much.
Air raid sirens in Kyiv on the day the foreign ministers of 2 of Ukraine's biggest backers arrive in the capital, announcing new aid packages of about $1 billion Canadian each.
The United States, the United Kingdom, united for Ukraine.
Allies hearing again firsthand what they have been hearing for months, that Ukraine wants permission to use donated Western missiles to strike launch sites deep inside Russia to prevent increasingly common Russian attacks.
We're here to listen, to understand the plan, to understand the strategy and understand the needs across a whole range of fronts.
No decision yet, but Ukraine's new Foreign Minister Andrei Sybiha called Wednesday's talks productive. On Tuesday, US President Joe Biden had this to say on long-range missiles.
We're working that out right now.
That coming on a day when the US and UK accused Iran of sending ballistic missiles to Russia. That was denied by the Kremlin and by Iran's foreign minister on Wednesday.
Since the escalation, Russia-Iran, is already happening before the permission is given to use the long-range missiles, my reading is that the situation now has changed.
Ukraine analyst Dominique Arel says Russia's threat of retaliation if long-range missiles are used should be weighed against its relatively limited response after Ukraine invaded Kursk region last month. A decision on the use of long-range missiles could come as soon as Friday, when British Prime Minister Keir Starmer heads to Washington to meet with Joe Biden. Donna?
Redmond Shannon in London. Thanks, Redmond. Some breaking news from Louisiana. Hurricane Francine has made landfall southwest of New Orleans as a Category 2 storm. Its winds jumped to 160 kilometers per hour shortly before it came ashore, pelting southern Louisiana with heavy rain. There are tornado warnings across the region. People who had not already been evacuated are being told to stay inside for their own safety. The state's governor warns parts of Louisiana could be without power for some time. And Vietnam is struggling with the fallout of Typhoon Yagi. The ensuing floods and landslides killed more than 170 people and ravaged infrastructure across the country's north. In the capital, thousands of people are fleeing by boat after the Red River's water levels surged to a 20-year high. Yagi is the strongest typhoon to hit Asia this year. A massive hailstorm that hit Calgary last month is now considered the second costliest insured event in Canada's history. That storm in early August resulted in nearly $2.8 billion in insured losses. The only one that's more expensive than this was the Fort McMurray wildfire in 2016. There have been over 130,000 damage claims already, including at Calgary's airport. A 2-year-old mystery solved. Coming up, how police had to go to Rome to recover a famous portrait stolen in Ottawa. If you've seen this photograph, you will remember it. It's called The Roaring Lion, and the story of how Yusuf Karsh captured this image of former British Prime Minister Winston Churchill is as captivating as the picture itself. It was stolen from the Chateau Laurier Hotel in Ottawa nearly 3 years ago. And now, as Eric Sorensen reports, it's been tracked down overseas. Charges have been laid, and the portrait's compelling story has yet another chapter.
It was a shocking loss at the historic Chateau Laurier Hotel. Around Christmas time 3 years ago, an original and iconic photograph of Winston Churchill called The Roaring Lion was stolen and replaced by a fake. It took months for someone to notice. Now, suddenly, the real picture has turned up in Italy.
We've been waiting for this day for over 2 years now, and I'm beyond excited.
Eventually sold at auction, neither Sotheby's nor the purchaser was aware the original had been taken.
He is as much a victim in this, and so is the auction house, as the Fairmont Chateau Laurier.
You can take $100 million off the wall and waltz right out the front door.
Hollywood has glamorized art theft, but it is a seamy criminal world with thieves and unscrupulous buyers. A 43-year-old man from Powassan in northern Ontario was arrested and charged in the Ottawa theft, but little light is being shed on the case.
There is a publication ban on his name because this matter is before the courts. We have to be very careful about what we can release. Forensic analysis and our investigation from here at the scene confirms for us that that is the portrait.
Winston Churchill was a titanic figure when he gave an electrifying speech to the Canadian Parliament in the Second World War.
To fight on in unity without any thought except the total and final extirpation of the Hitler tyranny.
Afterwards, Churchill, as always it seemed with a cigar, was to be photographed by the acclaimed Josef Karsh. He plucked the cigar from the Prime Minister's mouth. Churchill scowled, and Karsh had his photograph for the ages.
It's one of the most famous photographs in the history of photography. It just captured, I think, the strength and determination of the man, and it came to symbolize the strength and determination of England.
A handover ceremony from Italian authorities to Canadian officials will take place later this month, and Bruno Lair will put the portrait back in its rightful place.
They said they'd find it, and they did. And I'm glad, super glad.
Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
Remembering Grand Chief Kathy Merrick next, the life and legacy of the First Nations leader who died suddenly last week. Manitobans paid their respects today to a powerful voice for First Nations people. Grand Chief Kathy Merrick was the first woman to lead the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, and she is now the first woman to lie in state at the Manitoba Legislature. Merrick died suddenly last Friday after collapsing outside a Winnipeg courthouse, doing what she was best known for, advocating for her people. She was 63. Melissa Ridgen reports on how and why she is being honored.
On a gray morning where Winnipeg's sky matched the somber mood below, hundreds gathered for a sunrise ceremony to honor Kathy Merrick. One of many vigils honoring the respected First Nations leader who dedicated her life to fighting on behalf of the vulnerable, ultimately becoming Grand Chief of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs.
She was so much more than just a Grand Chief. That's the reason why I nominated her, because she was the best person for the job. Not because she was a woman, it's because she was good at what she does.
Merrick was taken from her parents in the 60s scoop and raised by a white family outside of Winnipeg until she was 9, when her adoptive parents, unheard of at the time, cared enough to return her to her birth family and community. She later became a leader, championing pushes for better health care and housing, battling for kids in the child welfare system, and for families of missing and murdered women.
They are not garbage. Yet they are being treated like garbage, left in a landfill site.
She fought to search a Winnipeg area landfill for the remains of women some seemed ready to forget. That work will start this fall, emblematic of Merrick's tireless work for a better Manitoba and why so many stopped to mourn and pay tribute Wednesday, including the province's premier, who honored Merrick as the first woman ever to lay in state in the Manitoba Legislature.
To her final moments, she fought for First Nations people. And when First Nations people will be better off, all Manitobans will be better off.
Her leadership approach was grounded in integrity, tenacity, and compassion.
She was an epitome of a Cree lady in that she had a lot of strength inside of her, but she was also very gentle. And she was the right leader for the right time. She inspired us.
An inspiration remembered for her devotion to improving the lives of others. Melissa Ridgen, Global News, Winnipeg.
Swifties for Kamala. Next, will this endorsement entice American voters? If former President Donald Trump had a rough time during last night's debate, things didn't get much better after the cameras turned off. One of the world's biggest celebrities, Taylor Swift, posted a picture of herself with one of her cats and endorsed Kamala Harris. Trump reacted today saying he isn't a fan of Swift. As Mike Armstrong explains, it's not Trump's opinion that matters. It's whether celebrity endorsements like this shift the vote.
It's me. Hi. Taylor Swift popped into the presidential election with an endorsement of Kamala Harris, mostly in support of her policies, but with digs at Donald Trump. Harris would lead, she says, with calm, not chaos. She also signed off Taylor Swift, childless cat lady, a reference to Trump's running mate, who once said the country was run
by a bunch of childless cat ladies.
Calm and not chaos.
Harris's VP pick found out he had Swift's support live on the air.
I am incredibly grateful, first of all, to Taylor Swift. I say that also as a cat owner, a fellow cat owner.
Now, it may have been a matter of when, not if, Swift endorsed Harris. She and Trump have had bad blood in the past. Her Netflix documentary includes a scene where her team pleads with her not to endorse a Democratic candidate in the 2018 midterms in her native Tennessee, that it would be seen as her being against Trump.
I don't care if they write that. I'm sad that I didn't 2 years ago, but I can't change that. Nice to meet you.
Now, in those midterms, Swift's support led to a big boost in voter registration. In fact, not just in Tennessee, but across the country. That said, her candidate didn't win.
One of the things that was really intriguing is that
this marketing expert has studied celebrity endorsement in both humans and monkeys. There is a hierarchy in troops, and high-status monkeys can affect others. Basically, a monkey feels better about something if a monkey it respects has made the same choice.
It's kind of like your confidence is boosted, your uncertainty is lower, it feels more familiar.
Now, where that science could help Harris the most is with young voters. It's the group least likely to be following the issues and least likely to go to the polls. It's also the group most likely to be swayed by Swift. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
And that is Global National for this Wednesday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is Hell's Gate near Boston Bar, BC. We'd love to see Your Canada. Please email it to globalnational@globalnews.ca. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.